So I want to go ahead and take a deeper look at the keyboard in this Scientist 909 calculator and go ahead and remove it. I want to clean the plastics here and I want all the mechanical assemblies removed. I'm kind of looking at how it comes apart. And it's not super clear which set of screws actually get removed. We'll see if these can be broke loose. I think this will drop the entire unit, or the entire keyboard assembly out the bottom, assuming all the screws will break loose without too much trouble. I can see the PCB kind of lowering itself down as I pull these out. Plastics in this are actually in really good shape overall. I don't think it'll take a lot of work to get it cleaned up and looking good. I do want to look at how the red bezel plastic's mounted in there, whether it should be removed as part of the cleaning or not. But right now I'm really interested in this keyboard with the magnetic reed switches. It's just such an interesting piece. It's not something I think I've ever encountered before. Looks like the keyboard just dropped loose, and it did. Let me get these screws captured. Set aside and contained. There's little, I'm not going to attempt to remove the bezel. There's little press fit connectors in there. It does look like, however, this metal frame can be removed if I undo these nuts. And since I've got it here, I might as well attempt that now. Are they 1/4 inch? Of course they're not. Well, maybe we're not going to tackle those right now. I don't see the socket set in the mess here, and I'm not sure why it's not just laying here. Well, I'll come back to that later. Let me set this aside. Let's take a closer look at this keyboard assembly. Hopefully the camera's focusing. Let me stand up and take a look. It looks like it is. So you can get a good look at the keycaps. Of course, they need to be cleaned. You can see the this might be plastic rather than glass, the way they feel. The actual key switches, it's over 1 inch tall. Let's see if I can remove a keycap without breaking something. Oh yeah, it just pulled right up off. Quite an interesting assembly. See if I can see what these ICs down here are. Yeah, they're 1970, third week and 23rd week in 1970. I don't recognize the part number. Oh, glasses are dirty. Micro L900259. I don't know what those are. Some kind of logic device. These those power resistors or capacitors, it's hard to say. They look like power resistors, but let me get a better look here. 0.1 microfarad 200 volt capacitors. Sprague 0.1 plus or minus 10%, 200 DC. Those look to be capacitors. That is a amazingly high voltage there. Wow. Amazingly high voltage. That kind of blows my mind that there might be that kind of power down here on the system. There can't be. That just doesn't make sense to me. It's keycaps come off very easily. Oh, as soon as I say that, one of them's really sticky. Wonderful. Let's get off the ones that are easiest to get off. We'll have to take a look at the one with the lights behind it. Getting construction noise outside, sorry. Lots and lots of transistors. The schematic of this keyboard would be really interesting. Let me take a look at that one. They're just bulbs up underneath. I just need to be careful not to disrupt the bulbs. And the body of the switch assembly is different. So you can see there's these little GE light bulbs that are actually socketed. It's reminiscent in my mind of the power light on Apple IIs. Lots of stuff going on outside. They're repaving part of the drive out there. Yeah, what I took to be glass tubes at first looking at these, they're plastic. I wondered if they were maybe sealed in some way, and they don't look like they are. Wow, okay. We'll come back to that one. And we'll come back to that one. Certainly don't want to break one of these. Getting a replacement for that switch assembly would be most likely impossible. At the same time, I definitely want to clean these keycaps up. Key's labeled hyper. I have no idea what hyper means. Definitely jammed on there. standard looking keycaps. I think they're going to clean up well. They don't seem to be yellowed in any way. Let's see if we can figure out what's up with these two. Gentle here. No idea what the dogs are barking at down there. Ooh, didn't mean to drop it. So you can see these are quite interesting switches. I had read they were magnetic reed relay switches, but I'm starting to wonder if that's true. Get a closer look into one of them. The Raytheon KBFR-1s. Now they are magnetic reed switches. There is a, you're probably not going to be able to see this well, there's a sealed magnetic reed switch inside of the plastic there, stood up on its end, and a small magnet on the plunger that moves down to close it. So the switch contacts themselves are sealed inside of the magnetic reed switch. At least that sure looks to be the way it is. Definitely a plastic housing. Let me find a couple of clip leads here. If I can find a couple. See if continuity on this guy works. Has he got a continuity mode on him? Zeroes down to about 1/3 of an ohm. Let's just clip onto the leads on the back of one of these. And see what we've got. So maybe 1/10 of an ohm, it's hard to say, but it definitely, it's really interesting with the magnetic reed switch being itself, I'm sure, encased in a glass envelope. It should be pretty much hermetically sealed, so the contact shouldn't corrode, which makes this pretty high reliability. The meter is just really slow to respond. Very cool. As I was kind of putzing around back here, there's a lot of really piss poor looking solder joints in the back of the board. You know, there's just there and there we're seeing right down into the solder doesn't go all the way around the pin. There, it doesn't go all the way around. I won't resolder these without actual reason to do so. I don't want to take a chance on heat damage. the switch assembly itself. It is a double-sided board, so there are vias through, so there's most likely enough solder down inside. The ones with the light bulbs here are interesting. Again, they're a Rayovac or Raytheon KBFR-6. It's got these two molded in connectors on the outside here for the little GE, what are they, 1387 maybe, light bulbs, or 7387, so the little GE 7387 light bulbs. You can see this bulb's yellowed from use, and the one over here isn't. I think this is the radians or degrees. You know, 5 total 16-pin dip packages. These 200-volt capacitors make no sense to me at all, unless I'm misinterpreting markings on them. Sprague 0.1 plus or minus 10%, 200 DC. Based on the package, I'd say it's probably non-polarized. They're both labeled exactly the same. Looking at the the width on the PCB of where they're mounted, it it was designed for a cap of this physical size. It's just really a mystery. The black transistors are 2N4249s. There's 3 metal can transistors in here that are 2N29077, 2N29007A. Date code in 72 on them, so that puts the manufacturing date most likely out into 72. No surprise. The entire interface to it is through this little 14-pin, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a 14-pin connector with only 13 pins used, and there's a key pin like we discovered in the previous video. So 13 pins is all that come up to this thing. There are a lot of transistors on here. Transistors. I wonder how this matrix is laid out, how it's scanned. Really makes me wonder what it encodes to, because I'm almost guessing this thing is encoded on board rather than being software or hardware scanned up into it. Don't know what the power rails on it are. It is conformally coded, I'm noticing. Yeah, there is some conformal coding on there. You can see it kind of splashed over the tops. Partially with the tops of the ICs, you can really see it in the row of resistors here. It's not a real heavy conformal coating, but it's there just to help deal with spills, although the spill would flow off this directly into the power supply, and that probably wouldn't be pleasant. Trying to find date codes on the switch assemblies themselves, if there is any. There's lots of 69-39. I think that's consistent across every one I can see, which I'm guessing isn't a date code. Oh, 69-37. 69-39. I bet these were manufactured in 1969, the switch assemblies. Looks like it is a date code, 69-36. It's just crazy to think these switches were manufactured in the late 60s. I don't know what the dogs are barking at down there. I may have to power it up and put a voltmeter over here and see if I can figure out the power rails on it. That would be kind of interesting. I'm surprised how clean it is overall. Don't you know, the only thing that's really been plugging up the kind of the holes in the bezel is the keycaps. There's no filter or anything underneath. It's of course got the bezel that goes on this way. Kind of sits over them like that. I don't know that there's a whole lot for me to do cleaning wise on this. Like I said, I'm not going to try to resolder it, where some of the solder joints look kind of bad. Unless something isn't working, I may come back and revisit that. And let me get it up here to the camera a bit. We'll take another close look at it. Hopefully there's sufficient light here that you can kind of get a view of what's up with it. I did order replacement capacitors on DigiKey for all the electrolytics I found. I was able to overrate all of them since newer capacitors are much smaller. So I went at least 50% higher voltage rating if I could. Yes, a couple of the caps, there's not direct replacements for the, the 400 microfarad is going to get replaced with a 470, the 600 with a 680. I don't think that'll be a problem. They all look to be just bulk filtering capacitors. Lots of flux on the back here. Definitely hand soldered. I mean, of course it was. Well, I'm sure there's no, I don't think there's a whole lot more to talk to here about the keyboard itself. I wonder where my little set of sockets went. Oh, here they are. Right where they should have been. So let me set this back well out of the way. And we'll go ahead and go a step further with the disassembly of this. Assuming I have a socket that'll fit those. 7:30 seconds? Yeah, 7:30 seconds. Switch the ratchet over. Yeah, no problem breaking those loose. I already hit that one. Or was it loose on its own? this will definitely be easier to clean with the metal components off. And sorry for the noise out there. Something I don't have any control over. I know you really can't see well into there, but there are these little press-on. It is a metal frame that the bezel's set into. I just don't see any way I'm going to pop those off without destroying them, so I think it will get cleaned with the bezel in place. It's metal and plastic, so I think it'll be safe to wash. You probably saw there the frame is in two pieces. The outer piece that overlays actually was glued into in the inner piece. Of course, it was in the case disorientation. You know, a couple of the bolt heads were rusty. Well, this feels like it's probably aluminum, although it might be heavy enough to be steel. If I got a screwdriver here with it's magnetized someplace in the mess. Okay. This plate here definitely is steel. This one I'm pretty sure is aluminum. Don't really know what it's going to take to clean that glue off. Let me get the nuts captured so that I don't lose them. Maybe place the three that are rusty. Oops. I don't know, some acetone might knock this down. It's really dry and crusty. That's a metal plate, although the acetone might knock the paint right off that if I'm not careful. I mean, this almost feels like silicone. I wonder if that's a coating, or say some silicone tape or something to stick to. Kind of undecided what to do about this. It's got a texture to it. And the highest little raised bumps have corroded underneath, and I need to, at a minimum, neutralize that corrosion. It's probably just going to get spray painted as close to color match as I can get. I don't really see that cleaning up. highest points have just got that little bits of corrosion on it. Well, I will tackle that at a future date. Pretty cool old calculator. Anyhow, I will wrap this piece of the video up here. And when there's something else to report, we'll take care of it then. Talk soon. So I thought we'd wrap up here by taking a look at some of the photos I shot. Obviously here are the plastic key switch assemblies with the magnetic reed switch inside and the plunger that pokes up through the top. It's really interesting. You can see around these the sea of transistors that are used to encode or multiplex or whatever they're doing here. It'd be interesting to kind of figure this keyboard out. Really interesting switch design. As you can see, they're well over an inch tall. It's pretty interesting. We can see the couple of 200 volt, what I believe are 200 volt caps here, which surprised me to be on this board. A view in it, a couple of the ICs, and more, of course, of the switch assemblies, the full board. A couple more of the integrated circuits on it. And the other three, I don't know what these devices are, I'd have to look them up. The markings on the Raytheon switch assemblies, apparently manufactured in '69. These were 32nd and 39th week, I believe, based on those date codes. Some of the piss poor soldering on the back of the board, and just flux everywhere. I've seen better soldering jobs, honestly. It's not up to Tektronix normal quality. You know, it's far from it. The little 14-pin interface socket with the keyhole filled with yellow there. This is actually the Sintra board, their design. Let's get into and take a look at some of the keycaps here. Here's the full matrix keycaps. Some really interesting keycaps in there. They've really held up well. They're currently being cleaned. We'll, in a future video, I'll take a look at everything cleaned up. You can see the two there with the light holes on them. Just a nice mix of functions. Interesting font. Really pretty cool, considering designed in the 60s, late 60s, I believe, manufactured into the early 70s. Just interesting, nice set of keycaps. The black on them is actually molded in, so it's not like painted on top. At least I believe that's correct, yes. It gives them kind of a tactile feel. So, neat old device. So with this, I guess I will officially wrap this up, and we'll talk soon.